Allons, bonjour, and welcome to Scotch on the Bayou Tuesday night. Great for everyone to be here. I'm Leanne, and tonight's show I'm so excited about. Fair warning, we may go a little long because we've got some great friends on tonight to relive weekend before last extravaganza in the Pacific Northwest in the Victoria Whiskey Festival. And I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Really appreciate everyone coming in tonight. And let's see who all we have. Speaking of Canadians, Donner Pass, great to see you. Yes, the festival was in Foodquigs, actually. Yes, his hometown. And is a favorite of his. Wonder if he was there. I believe he was, but I didn't get to see him, nor did I meet Trini and C. And I was really trying hard. And we just our paths went back and forth and never did meet ships at night and all. Um, this is one of my new friends, Claude. Very nice to have you here, friend. Friend of Chad's I got to meet and very happy. Um, Again, I love how Canada's turning out tonight. Good to see you. Thanks, Mike, for being here as well. This is awesome. Um, Good to see you, Mo. Andrew Butler from the UK is in tonight, this morning. And Martin, hey, friend, you need to get to Victoria. You'd lose your ever loving mind. Yeah, it's just really, really cool. A really cool place. Like temperature wise, it was absolutely perfect in my eye. But yeah, lots of people kind of like, what do you mean you're going 2,000 miles to Seattle? Then getting on a ferry to go to Victoria. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But just for a whiskey festival. And as I said in the promo, this is not just a whiskey festival. And was very unlike most any whiskey festival I've gone to down here in the States. Not that I've gone to so many of them, but enough to where you could tell this was something special, and excited about sharing that with you. So let me know what you're drinking tonight as well. I'm starting out with the Compass Box Orchard House, um, which was part of the Compass Box masterclass that we had, um, but Scott Ellis conducted. And we'll talk again more about that. So Donner's got an old malt cask Altmore, 11-year, 7 months, sherry butt, 64%. Woof, woof. Probably a little warm. Yeah, needs a little bit of water. See what kind of chemistry happens there. Awesome. Hey, George. Um, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes. Looking forward to this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for being here. And Donna, yay. I'm glad you were able to come and visit with us. Yay. Awesome. Loch Ness, you too. Mm, this will be fantastic. I will surely not keep this to an hour. I can't imagine. And it's going to be so much fun. We got a late start because we're all having fun talking in the background, getting all our P's and Q's together. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun time. Hey, Stacy, good to see you. Going to be on her show on the 12th, Sunday week. Super excited about that. Oh, and Ed says hey too. Where's Ron? We get the whole group together. That's for sure. Um, so Jim Kimura is drinking scotch for the Northmost Distillery in a fancy Viking bottles. Yes, that would be Jim, also known as Mr. Highland Park. Awesome. That's great. Um, Goodness. Let me have another sip. Get this night going. Mm. So, yeah, and talking. So, y'all have met Jennifer before. Jennifer and I were at the Iowa Whiskey Academy together, have remained great friends. Thankfully, we're just around 4.5, 5 hours from each other down I-10 because she's over in Houston. And we tend to, we're getting into some shenanigans here and there. 2 years at the Bastard's Ball, and we've lived to tell about that. And and talking with one of our guests tonight, Chad, through the Scotch for Dummies Patreon chat one night. We were talking about different whiskey festivals, and he brought this up, and I wanted to learn more about it. Talked to my friend Terry, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, it's wonderful." And then it was like, "Hey, Jennifer." And so I was like, "What you doing in January?" So let's bring Jennifer on, and we'll carry that conversation on. Hey, my friend.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Fine. I was laughing in the background and you called me and said, "What are you doing in January?" And I was like, "I don't know. What you got in mind?"
Like, oh, you want to go to Canada in January?
Sure. Who
Two
doesn't?
Southern girls going to Canada in January. I don't own a coat that would fit the typical weather of what I think weather should be in Canada in January. So,
Oh, the whiskey
yeah,
keeps your core warm. It's all right.
yeah, absolutely. So, you were easily corrupted, and I do appreciate that.
Corrupted by,
What?
you said corrupted by.
Corrupted by me making you,
Oh,
getting
certainly.
you to go up there.
Gladly.
Yeah. Well, whiskey tastes better shared, right? So I can't
Absolutely.
think of anybody else more than I'd like to share to haul, for us to haul up there. And I had the greatest intentions. Um, it was really something, to get an idea about what this festival was. And and we'll bring Chad here in a second, but just consulting with Chad and Terry going, how do we get tickets for this? How is this even possible? How can we get in the queue? There were all of these things. I was at my computer right at 9 o'clock on that November day, ready to buy the tickets.
Well, the whole
Um,
process that you had to call the hotel and leave a voicemail and they answered it in the order in which they received them.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
had to you had your first pick ticket package and then all your backups in mind. So that just the
exactly.
whole setup it was funny.
It,
Work.
it, it was, but it works for them. So,
It was, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So because we can, we have a slideshow. So I'm going to start off and just say, this is about the Victoria Whiskey Festival.
Fantastic.
Found out about all kinds of spirits I'd never heard of. A lot of Canadian single malts that I'd never heard of. Barely heard anything about this in the middle Boulder spirits because it's not down here.
Right.
So just being able to go through that and to see all of that and just go up there and find it. But yeah, you and I we made plans. We're gonna fly to Seattle. Had some fun in Seattle, tooled around there a little bit. We went to Westland and
Great whiskeys. Yeah.
so I jokingly said something about bail money on the Scotch for Dummies Discord channel, but the fact of the matter is we did not need to have bail money, but we did close down 3 businesses in Seattle. I'll just remind everybody. We closed down Westland.
Mhm.
We closed down Taylor Oyster that night,
So good.
which was, granted a Thursday night, and they weren't open terribly late.
They
And
were good.
then coming back, we closed
Springbank
down.
oyster shooters. Just have to throw that out
Huh?
there.
Real
Springbank
louder.
oyster shooters. Springbank oyster shooters. Just
Yes,
saying.
Springbank oyster shooters. Those were amazing. And then the Dungeness crab
Oh
with
my gosh.
this sauce that you just kind of wanted to carry around in the crab bowl and just oh my god, it was so
Walking down the
good.
streets of Seattle with a crab shell in your hand, full of
Yeah.
sauce.
A
Yeah.
little dipping crab and
Snacking, I
dipping
know the feeling.
bread. It was amazing. Uh yeah. We that was our splurge dinner for sure.
For sure.
For sure. Uh and then we were supposed to take the ferry on Friday. But the ferry was in dry dock.
Yeah.
So we figured this out 2 weeks ahead of time, and I frantically was texting Terry one day. I was like, "Oh my god, how the hell are we gonna get to Victoria?" Because I'm thinking we're in the next, the remake of Trains, Planes, and Automobiles to try to get to Victoria from Seattle. It might look close, but it's really not close if you don't really have a game plan. So thankfully, as brilliant as she is, she's like, "Well, take the seaplane." I'm like, "The way what?
We're like, come again? What?
The seaplane? What's you talking about, Willis?" You know. So we literally took the seaplane. So I'm gonna share this next slide. Um, it was pretty amazing. Oops. This was the plane. I'm like, that's a little plane,
It's the wee one. Yeah.
you know. I was like, that's a really little plane. And then this little video vignette. This is us having landed in Victoria, the little Kenmore Air. So there's what, 6 of us on it going and like 8 coming back, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And our hotshot pilot, was his name Eric or Larry?
It was Larry.
It was Larry.
It was Larry.
I thought so. I guess it's my dad's name. But look how gorgeous Victoria is, y'all. I mean, that's Seattle,
super pretty.
still picture. This is Seattle, Lake Union, so in the north part of town, and you know it's got 2 canoes on it. And he ramped that sucker up, and we were in the air,
Yeah,
going over Puget Sound, over the Orca Islands, and just flitted right back into the back into the harbor there at Victoria. It was just amazing. And then we get there, you know, and Victoria is absolutely stunning. It's like storybook gorgeous.
Yeah, it was
right?
so pretty.
It's so pretty. This is the Parliament. It is the equivalent of the capital of the state of the province, of course. And I loved how, you know, the indigenous art was everywhere. Like it just felt very open, inclusive, and it was neat. It was neat to see that. And the statue that night we went to go grab a bite to eat, that was just eerie. You know, it was so pretty.
Yeah,
it really was. Oh goodness. But yeah, so we decided we get there, and we walk in. We're a little tired. A little tired. You were a little grayish, might I say?
so I heard. I don't know. You went first through customs when we got to Canada, and I'm leaning over your shoulder, and I said to the agent, I was like, I might throw up from the seaplane. Is that okay?
That brings up a good point, because yeah, we go through customs, and and they ask me, you know, how long we're here. 3 days. What are you here for? The whiskey festival. And they like said, well, do you have any friends here? And I said, yes. And then I go, who are they? And I said, Chad Anderson, Tammy Lamb, Teresa Smith. And they were like, when's the last time you met with them? And I went, about that. Yeah, I haven't met them in person yet. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I haven't met them in person. I just know them on this box over the last 2 or 3 years.
But I know they exist.
And they're like, what do you mean you don't know them? I'm like, it's been a pandemic. You know, they're my whiskey friends online. I finally get to meet them. I came all the way up here.
Also, the age of the internet, people meet on time.
Exactly. I came all the way up here to meet these wonderful people. And now I want to bring them on and say hello to Chad Anderson. We're all going to squeeze in here.
Hi.
And Terry.
Hi.
Hey.
We'll do that. Yay.
Sanja.
Whew. How's everybody?
Awesome.
Rested finally. Yeah.
Everybody's recouped from the weekend.
Recovered.
Recovered a little bit, rehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about 2 days, and I was still like, just, you know, getting every bit of water I could get into me.
Catch up sleep.
Yeah.
Because, well, in fairness, I think travel pulls a lot of that out as well, not just the alcohol, you know.
Yeah. I was mentioning to you, Leanne, it's you know, all of us kind of have experienced this before in one way or another, and you know, we kind of know how the best way to approach it is, and so we're very responsible. I mean, I wasn't hungover any day. I was just tired because you're busy, and it was nice to see all 4 of us there, and just being responsible and you know, just doing the whiskey festival properly. The first year I went there to Victoria, I did not do that, and I suffered immensely for it.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the first year I went, I was so excited. I go for breakfast at 10, first master class at about 11. So all day you're in master classes, and then the public tasting comes, and I am just in awe, right? This is my first one. So excited. I spent all night there, and then finally, 10 minutes before closing, I finally learned that there's an entire another room that I completely missed. So
Oh
I quickly
no.
rushed. Yeah, I quickly rushed to this room, and again, I'm trying to get through everything I can. I didn't realize there was a food room. They have a whole room dedicated to food that they serve throughout the festival, throughout the public tasting. I didn't know that either. So, needless to say, the next day at the airport was not much fun.
Oof.
You know, Chad, on the website itself, there's a whole link just for how to survive the Whiskey Festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
obviously, I missed that. No, I missed it entirely. Yeah.
But I mean so we had a great, I mean, coming all the way from, Louisiana and Texas, we had a great advantage, and that was because of the two of you. So if people are interested in that or any other whiskey festival, try to find someone who's gone to that festival that can give you the lay of the land and tell you what to expect, and that kind of thing, because that's just valuable. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm like on WhatsApp, OMG, what am I going to do? How do I get these tickets?
Yeah. The ticket process is a little different, right? But I think each whiskey festival kind of has their own little unique quirks and ways that they prefer to do things. But all in all, it's extremely well run, and I'm sure Terry can attest to that as well. And you guys as well, just how well run that festival is.
No, it's a well-oiled machine, and we've had a lot of feedback about it as well. And it's 17 years. They do have a lot of experience putting this together. Probably some of the best master classes that you'll ever come across, and the sheer number of master classes put on at this event was about, I think it was 44. And it certainly does take quite a number of volunteers and people to switch that over and get all those classes ready for the next group. And it's all timed. It's just
it is amazing. And talking to Ian, one of the founders and people that have run this thing, he holds the liquor license. He was telling me, and he can't have his first dram until it's all done. Which I thanked him for his service and sacrifice for us all. In that respect. And he's like, all these years we've not had an incident. And one of the things too that I was so very impressed with was the fact that, for locals, and I would say locals, he even stipulated it was 20 miles in one direction and 30 miles in another direction. They would take you home. They had like even celebrities. I think the chief of police or, the mayor or somebody was even driving people home in these dealership Lexus and Audis. They were taking people home. So nobody, it was absolutely stipulated at the beginning of every session, thou shalt not drive, and you do not have to finish all your whiskey. So knowing that lay of the land, understanding your responsibility and being a participant in a whiskey festival is extremely important, because we've all seen that guy or that girl too, because I've seen a couple of women that just, it's not just a guy. It's not a bro dude thing. It just seems like there's a lot of those, because there sometimes are a lot of men, but, you have to be responsible for these things when you are attending. So it just, but yeah, very well run. But when we got there, Chad, you and your posse took us to eat food, because we were like getting hangry. So y'all treated us to breakfast, and it was I think we all ate the lumberjack breakfast sandwich. Let's just say lots of potatoes in Canada. I mean, it was really good. There were potatoes everywhere, but the breakfast sandwich and the good gravy, their bacon was amazing. It reminded me of Scotland bacon.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm sure some of us, the old adage of never meet your heroes kind of thing, and I'm sure we've all been in that position at one point or another where we've met somebody we really admire or look up to, and it's been a less than stellar experience. And I have to say that as soon as I saw you and Jen walk in, it was like all that was out the window. It was like, one of those amazing experiences where I felt like I'd known you for so long. Everything was comfortable, and it was just a smooth transition. It was a wonderful time, and it was an amazing experience for me. I truly, truly cherish it. So thank you both for that, and Terry as well. Meeting you was fantastic. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you guys for bringing us in. I mean, seriously,
yeah.
you were like there waiting for us, and you just, you guys need the experience. Come on.
Y'all were I mean, because I knew, especially, you were there to attend, Chad, and then Terry, you were working most of it. So I just didn't want y'all to feel beholden that you had to do so much, and take us around. But what you did is you were absolutely enveloped us in your people. Chad had his guys, Claude, Ed, and Ryan, and we fell in step with them. And then we're gonna start with Friday night. So that was Friday morning. We had that. The first event was going to be that night, a grand tasting. There were 7 different grand tastings, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I have to share this. Friday night was about dinner with the ladies and shopping. Oh my word. It was
Not me hugging my Bunnahabhain.
It is, yeah.
Your Bunnahabhain. Like you're like, you can take this with my cold dead hands.
You don't see the oily and coastal category out very often, so I grabbed it.
So we made a quick trip to
it was
drive. And the fact that SMWS is sold at a liquor store as opposed to online, because the laws are different there. We can buy it here online, but they can't sell it in a store. And it's the opposite for you all, right?
We can buy it online as long as it's through the store's website that stocks them. So we can, yeah.
Okay.
But it's all within our province. So BC residents can only legally purchase within BC from the Strath, where Jen has that bottle there, the Strath in Victoria, and Legacy Liquor in Vancouver as well.
Oh, okay.
But the fact that you can walk into a shop and just peruse the SMWS bottles, that was awesome. Like that was new for us.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, here in Kelowna, where I'm living now, SMWS is just partnered with a liquor store here as well. So now we are able to buy SMWS bottles here. That's really cool.
Oh man, that's crazy and awesome. Terry, talk about this group of women. I mean, we started a chat on Instagram, and it grew, and it's like you just like said, "Come on, girls, we're gonna show you the Victoria way. We're gonna show you the BC way," and I love it.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like we started off with just a small group of 6, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing, and we added more friends. And to be honest, if we had a bigger space, we probably would have kept adding more people. I think we just need to plan for this better next year. But this was really impromptu, and a lot of industry people here. But it was really nice to just connect everybody and just introduce people, and people who have the like-minded interest and have the same level of passion for whiskey. And it's hard for us to find each other. So I just felt that this particular event for us was really, really key and important, to feel that, kindredness and kinship.
Yeah. I mean, I'm humbled that you wanted to include us, because we hadn't met in real life, right? We'd met, we talked, and we'd done video calls, and I introduced you to Jennifer, and I love that we're able to build that community. And because of the way the world was for so long, we had to, but with so much disconnect. And what at some point I want to do a show to go over what your adventures have been. And for those who don't know, And I want to make sure, let me pull this back, because I'm going to take this off, but Unbottling by Terry, with Terry, and then at the Whiskey Sniffer. If you're not following these two folks on Instagram, do it right now. Because I'm going to tell you, both of you, you will be wanting to live vicariously through Terry big time, because she has spent months last year in Scotland working in distilleries, just kind of doing her thing and getting her mojo working. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I have FOMO like you have no idea. And so I would love for us to talk more about that, that later on for sure. And I'm in the throes of planning the trip in June, and I know I need to chat with you about a couple of places there too. But yeah, make sure you follow both of those folks for sure. But so going through Friday night, and then we get Friday night, there's 7 different grand tastings, right? So the one that I ended up going to was Douglas Lane, and this is Dougal Bar. God, what a great, I mean, his Scottish accent is just like, oh man, this is a cherry on top. You know what I mean? But we went through these primarily midnight series of particular, and it just very interesting drams, things that I've not seen in my market. And I think that was one of the big surprises I had, was exposure to some things that I just didn't see. There were others that, yeah, they were kind of run of the mill in things we can get maybe down here. But one of the biggest observations I had is the number of independent bottlers that were there, between Douglas Lane, SMWS, Gordon and MacPhail, and
Duncan Taylor was there.
Duncan Taylor, and it's 80 Rattray. Yeah. So having those, and you sometimes see those on the shelf, and I don't think a lot of folks really know what to think about independent bottlers, and so that was a big conversation. I found Chad after mine over here with this stunning individual, Richard Urquhart from Gordon and MacPhail. What a delightful man. Oh my heaven.
He really is. He is amazing.
Like,
he's so soft spoken.
So
yeah, awesome. Absolutely. I did too. I'll tell you right now, definitely man crush going on there.
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm proud to say. I was like hanging on every word the man was saying.
Absolutely. He's just such a gentleman. He's so soft spoken, but so knowledgeable, passionate. Really, obviously, in tune with his family and the importance that they play within the company as well. Just a fantastic individual. It's those kind of people that you really hope to meet in the industry. And luckily, in the whiskey industry, there are a lot of people like that, are really genuine and really just very, very nice people. And he is definitely one of them.
Yeah. He was so nice. When I went in there, I mean, he had just finished 8 expression grand tasting of Gordon MacPhail offerings.
Yes.
He'd gone through, his whole presentation. I walk up, you introduce him to me, and I'm like talking about, independently bottling and buying the spirit, and then deciding, the casking. And he goes, "Oh, wait." He turns around, flips through his presentation, and then brings up, what the slide about what type of spirit that particular distillery has, and then how they make the choice of what type of cask to match it with, and the maturation time period, and then where they're going to put it. And I was just like, my geekiness was like hitting 11. I was just so excited.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was at that master class that he had there, and I came out of there, and the thing, when I posted on Instagram, I had mentioned that that particular tasting reminded me of why I love whiskey. Everything in that lineup it was different. They were very complex. The quality was through the roof. and it just reminded me, this is why I love whiskey, just the diversity of flavors, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was fantastic. And for those of you that are, there was I mean, they had, uh, the Spey malt, which is a 2000s Macallan, right, and first fill sherry, which is amazing. I think he had like a 30-year-old Kalila in there as well. But he
Ugh.
actually had an Ardmore. Like, so the picture that showed Jen there with a Bunnahabhain bottle, that was taken at the Strath, which is a liquor store in Victoria. And that he has one. He actually said he pulled it right off the bottling line, so he didn't have any details on it. But it is for the Strath's 20th anniversary. It is an Ardmore, and it is excellent. So for those of you here in BC, I
Oof.
would definitely look out for that one. That is definitely one to watch for.
Like,
Fantastic whiskey.
fantastic insider information. And
Yeah.
he's already talked to Adam and the guys there, and he's gonna have his bottle tucked back.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you all
So-
about it, but I got my bottle secure. That's what that is. I don't blame you, buddy. I know the way it works for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just quickly, Leanne, there was a Dalyuan in that old particular tasting, was there not?
it was.
Okay, so anybody that knows me knows Dalyuan is my favorite distillery. Some of the old particulars that I have are probably my favorite expressions of Dalyuan. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts were of the Dalyuan there.
I probably have my notebook's in the other room. Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, it very light. But it had depth to it. It was a lighter tasting spirit, but definitely had depth to it. I was just pretty much in awe of the whole night. But I'll go back and look because I wrote copious notes on everything
You did.
during all of the tastings because I wanted to just try to be in the moment and kind of record some of this and then kind of go back because when you're tasting those, they pour a little bit. They're not going to pull a full dram of everything for you. So it is just that. It's a tasting, not a drinking. That's a different thing. That's for the after party, which is a whole other thing we probably won't get into too much tonight. But there was some drinking going on at the after party. Let me just say.
Yes, there was.
But when you think about the tasting, that particular one, I had not had any of those expressions, so I really wanted to be able to absorb that and pay attention to what my palate was doing, pay attention to the nose. So I wrote big notes on that. When we get to the Saturday Masterclasses, some of those, the ones that I took, I'd had some of those expressions. So to me, it was more nosing the differences between all of those. So for example, at Ardbeg, I'd had most of those. There were a couple, I think there were some exclusives, but it was the idea that I had a dram of each of them, a sampling of each of them at one time. I'm not going to necessarily do that. Well, maybe if Jennifer comes back to the house, like we did all those community releases, community releases. That's okay. But having 10, Corvec, Ugadal, what else do we have? I'm just thinking, and just kind of being able to nose all those, I thought was a really great advantage. And to kind of be in that moment to taste that, I can taste them, but I don't have to drink all of that one because I got a bottle of those on my shelf, But to taste an Ugadal up against, a committee release or an as yet unreleased Ardbeg, that was different and interesting. So that's what I kind of got from that. So
Yeah.
Saturday was all about the master classes, and as Terry's working, well, she's working hard. She's trying to pour up
2 at a time.
I know. So logistically, let's talk about this for a second. So Friday night, 7 different grand tastings, and if y'all want to if anybody wants to pipe in about the ones that they went to, but on Saturday there were 4 time slots starting at 11:15. The last one I think was like at 420, something like that.
420.
So there were 4. Your package came with 3, but we got some lanyap thanks to Claude and Chad, and I got to slip into that ard bag. There was 40 minutes in between each. There were 44. Okay, so there was like 10 going on at each iteration, guys. And the host of people like Terry and volunteers that turned those rooms around was just amazing. The hotel staff and being able to turn that many glasses around, amazing.
Yeah.
And getting the tasting mat, the detail in this event was unreal. And I know, yes, after 17 years, you probably got it down, but it was the branding, the tasting mats, the tickets. Oh my gosh. We're trying to figure out like what kind of craft project we can make to make our
ready. Maybe it's coming. There it is. There it is.
It's a collectible item now.
I know.
I have all of mine.
And we get to the consumer tasting on Saturday night, and the woman was going to take it. I'm like, no, you can't have my ticket. You can't go part of me. You can't do it. No, I have a full set. What you talking about?
Yeah.
And
glasses. You want to keep them all because it's got the years on them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you do. And Leanne, thanks to Terry as well. She's got the whiskey cask and Glencairn from Mark Gillespie as well. Thanks to Terry there, brought him over. And it's one of those things where I was at the after party and I had John McShane right in front of me, and then I had the gentleman from Ardbeg.
Bry.
Yeah,
Bry. Bry.
And that's Bry that we were going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, okay, good. So we had John, we had Bry talking football. I had Jen next to me, and it was like an out-of-body experience. I mean, and I look past them, and I see all these amazing people in the industry or friends, and I was just really just on an out-of-body experience. It was like, this is amazing. This is why I'm into whiskey, because these amazing people, and really, the whiskey is a huge part of it. But it's the people that really, is the icing on the cake. And it was a really amazing experience. And I've been fortunate over the years to have had those. And that was just one of them. So it was really special.
Yeah, I will also add too that like when you're in a space like this and you really do feel like you're amongst friends, and there's no egos, right? There are no egos. You don't feel that at all. No one's pretentious about it. It's very casual. We're all here to share dram and enjoy everything that we love about this. So, yeah. And the generosity, like people bringing whiskey, sharing things from cellars. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. You spend your time at the after party just looking and just sampling all these amazing whiskeys, and then we were trying to leave, and it's like we couldn't get out the door because there was always somebody saying, hey, you got to try this, you got to try that. So it was like an hour-long process just to get out the door, and it's 2:30.
You've met somebody online, right? And then you go, oh my God, this is this person. Oh, you have to meet this person. And so your goodbyes, are an hour long.
And just so you know, Terry can hold 4 glasses in one hand. They got to be competitive, but she can hold 4 in one hand. That was very impressive. She was very impressed. But and I mean, but the master classes and looking at those, I did the SMWS, Ardbeg, Compass Box, which was very interesting. We had 3 different versions of Flaming Heart. Which was great to be able to compare, right? And be able to go through the nose on all 3 of them, different versions. I don't know that I would pour all even if I had all 3 bottles, if I would sit down and do that. But you learn so much about doing it. And then there was this gentleman that sat next to me at the Compass Box. Tall guy, lives in Alberta, has a little liquor store, So I got to meet Andrew Ferguson from Kensington Wine Market, and he was delightful. And that's why I'm finishing up this orchard house, because it was one of our selections on that compass box, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good." And he goes, what do you think? I said, well, it's like, it truly is like orchards. It's like fresh fruit, and for the price point. And he's like, yeah, and so it was really neat to be able to talk a little shop with him. But he was sitting there and he was writing his, I felt like I was cheating in school a little bit, because he had this piece of paper and he writes in dash and he starts writing P dash. He's writing his tasting notes, right? The nose, the palate, the finish. And I said, this, I know we just only met, and this may seem a little forward. And he kind of looks at me and I go, but I would really like to read your tasting notes. And he's like, they'll be on the website. I was okay. I'll go to the website. I'll look at them there.
Yeah. I don't think there's nobody palate I trust more than Andrew Ferguson's palate. I've been buying cask picks and just general recommendations from him for over 10 years, and very rarely am I disappointed. That man has it dialed down, but not only that, he also focuses on value in a certain way that a lot of people overlook. He's got some amazing whiskeys that he, in casks that he picks, but the value and the prices that he's putting them at is just phenomenal as well. And and let's face it, the whole after party, we owe a special thanks to Andrew Ferguson, as well. And in his, on the whiskey side, Kurt works with him as well, and Evan as well. And, Frank as well, Frank Hudson as well. We owe a huge thanks to them for organizing us and allowing us to partake in the after party, which was amazing as well. So a big thank you to them. Thank you very much, guys.
Wow. That was tremendous. It's, it was certainly not expected, but boy, I'm sure I'm glad we were there.
Well, we also felt like we had to bring an offering, right? So if we're gonna get invited to this amazing after party, and it was like, what do we bring? So I guess we decided to represent Texas, right? Because I don't think about this is like a couple-hour drive from me, but I didn't realize that it was less readily available there. So like, you brought some and I brought some Balcones. So it's like, but if you're gonna get invited to this after party, like, got to have a proper offering. You can't.
You don't show up a party empty-handed. No, indeed. I mean, we would do a woman card for that real quick. And I have to say, a 4-year-old Andalusia up against a 1990s Macallan was like, well, you can't get it up here, so at least it was something different.
Different novelty effect.
Yeah, that was truly amazing. So what's something that y'all learned during this, or a particular thing that for the weekend that kind of, or maybe especially like the sessions, an observation that you might have made?
Well, one of mine came from Thursday night. So Thursday night there was also Masterclasses as well, or grand tastings. Okay. Just the one, I think. Yeah. So I was at the Amroot one with Ashok. Chalkingham. He was the master distiller, master blender. Yeah, he's the master distiller, master blender for Amroot. And I've been to one of his tastings before, and anybody who's been there, Leanne, you would probably know this. He is like the Bobby J of India. He is always smiling, always happy, always in a good mood, and it's such a pleasure to watch him present. And one thing that I learned from him was, so now in Amroot, they actually have 2 still houses right next to each other, with exactly the same equipment. And he flat out says, I cannot replicate one spirit with the other from the other still house. He can't get the same spirit from one still house to the next. And, he's tried, but he just can't do it. And I didn't realize that. And, it speaks a lot about Providence and stuff like that. And also, one of the things was, I asked a question about his fermentation times, and I think he said something like 144 hours or something, just an extremely long fermentation time, which to me would explain those wonderful fresh fruit notes that you get, those orchard fruits that you get from Amroot. So that was one takeaway that I had from there, from the master classes, that I really was excited to hear about.
Oh, that's very interesting. Especially like how you couldn't replicate that with the same, because the first thing I thought about was the second still house at Ardbeg. It's like, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. They've got, he's got, I mean, through the tasting, one thing people should watch out for. So Amberwood's actually started bottling whiskeys from other Indian distillers under the Single Malts of India range.
Okay.
And we had a couple of those, and they were fantastic. So that's something for the viewers and the listeners and stuff to watch out for. The Single Malts of India. Really, I was impressed with those. Very, very, very nice.
Huh.
Yeah. That.
I was very pleasantly surprised to see that 25 to 30% of the attendees were women. That rocked. Yeah. That really rocked. And it was, I mean, I'm seeing it more and more, and even in our own club, we're getting more and more women in our own club. But it was great to see, usually every table had 3 to 4 people, and there was a woman on every row. I was like, yeah, I'm liking that. That was cool.
Except for the distill class, I was the only woman, but it was still fun.
You do stand out in the crowd.
I think you paved the way for me in the distill class. The presenter was like, "Is anyone here from Texas?" And I was like, well, he's like, "Yeah, I met your friend downstairs."
Oh, yes. Yeah, Leanne, you got recognized.
She did. She totally did.
She did. Yeah, she got stopped, and she's like, "Aren't you Scotch on the Bayou?" And yeah, so then I would lose you for like a good half hour while you spoofed and did that. But yeah, you did. You got recognized quite a bit.
It was it was a little surreal there a couple times. It was y'all, and you totally perpetuated the stereotype of being nice people in Canada. Okay. I mean, and embrace that stereotype, because we need more kindness in the world. So take up the torch and lead the way for the rest of the world.
Yes.
And keep being unbelievably kind that you all were. That was fantastic. And the fact too that, I think one of the things about this particular where that was so different from down here is down here is so predominantly bourbon. It's so predominantly American whiskey. And at first I thought, well, this is going to be, predominantly Canadian whiskey. And there was Canadian whiskey. And like I said, I got to the Shelter Point. I learned about 2 brewers. Is that it? The other
brewers we did Macaloni's Island Distillery as well.
That one, of different Canadian single malts, but world whiskeys with Amrit. There, the Japanese whiskey that was presented. Reese was your friend was one of the folks who presented that. Yes, there was American bourbon and rye. But I would say it was at least 50 to 60%, malts. Wouldn't you say? It was heavy on malts and Scotch. Yeah,
typically up here, and then Terry will kind of obviously attest to this as well. Even up here, we don't have a huge bourbon presence up here. Even in Alberta, with the privatized system where they're able to get some really amazing whiskeys. They don't get a lot of bourbon up there either, so we're kind of starved up here for bourbon. It kind of makes sense they wouldn't have a huge emphasis on that at the festival.
So can they? So like commercially, y'all don't get much of it. Is that the situation?
We do, but it is a challenge. I think it's more about allocation. So what we are allowed to carry from, or what is permitted from the States. Because, depending on how much you make there, America is still the largest consumer. So why would they need to come to Canada, right? We do get some select products that are, we usually have to enter our name in for a lottery to receive, to even have the chance to purchase. That's usually how we get our bourbon. Like there's a bourbon spirit release as well, or part of the spirit release, I believe, Yeah, so we do get it. And then prior to the pandemic, you know, the Americans would sell out of the bourbon in the States. So then they'd cross the border and come here and try to buy the bourbon because
Yes.
there's nowhere else to get it.
Oh man, I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, but you know, it is what it is. So
It is what it is, and we're through the BC Liquor Distribution Board. They do have their own barrel picks. I mean, we have a lot of buying power in BC, probably only second only to Ontario in Canada. And so we do actually get some barrel picks from Wild Turkey and Old Forester and such that
Daniels.
they just obviously you can't get down in the U.S. So those are really sought after as well.
Okay.
And we usually go for single cask exclusive releases.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you get more for your money on that anyway, right?
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I poured a little sample of your oily and coastal Bunnahabhain, Jennifer.
That's what I've been slowly nursing this whole time, and I finished. But yes, I'd like to see it.
What's the name of it?
Mexican Mixed Pebbles.
Ooh.
Oh man.
12 years old, second fill, ex-bourbon, 61.6%. I did give it just a couple little drops of water. Lovely. Morning coffee, listening to the waves on the Pebble Beach before we had granola with smoked oats, chocolate, and Mexican-style melon balls.
Okay.
Anyone wanted to know.
That was a nice
one.
Doesn't it sound good?
Right?
Yeah. That was really good.
Buna is bueno. How's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was very good. One of my highlights as well was actually witnessing live a blind tasting with Leanne. That was one of my highlights because we all know Leanne is very good at blind tastings. And so we kind of impromptu put one together in the hotel room, and to her credit, I gave her one little hint and then she nailed it. So it was a Bruichladdich, like a 16-year-old Bruichladdich that Claude had bought. That was in a sherry cask, I believe.
Tempranillo.
And
Tempranillo.
oh yes,
red wine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and all I said was, this is a distillery you like, and then boom,
And like,
it was
that narrowed down to about 35.
exactly right. It did for me. Yeah. It would for me too, but then I'd be lost. But then you nailed it. You narrowed in about this is fantastic, and Jen as well. Jen, you partook as well, and you were fantastic in your tasting notes. And it's always great to see how different people approach blind tastings or approach whiskeys, nosing tasting. I'm curious about that. I enjoy it, and it was a pleasure just to have you guys there. Learn about your backgrounds a little bit more. Learn about where you live, how that influences how your tasting notes and your nosing notes. That plays into it as well, right? There are certain foods that you guys mentioned that I just really have very little knowledge about. So that was very cool as well.
That the blind was a lot of fun because I'm like, I'm slightly like parlor tricks at this point. Like, if I don't nail this, imposter syndrome is bad enough on a daily basis, But I was like kind of working through it. But man, it's just like that base spirit. And I wish I would have taken a picture of Claude's face when I said, "This is Bruichladdich," because his whole face was like.
Yeah, that's what she does. That's what she does. And then
awesome. I was like,
yeah,
right,
Yeah. And then conversely to me, because I have a hard time with peat now. I find as I age, whatever, I have a harder time picking up peat. I was in a blind and it had 6 whiskeys in it, and I'm like, okay, well, these 2 are peated. I got that. We're good to go. And everybody kind of looked at each other that knew what the whiskeys were, and I'm like, well, what's the matter? What's going on? And like, they're all heavily peated. I'm like, okay, great. So obviously I got 2, but there's 4 that I can't get any peat on, and they're heavily peated. So it's like, So people that do well in blind tastings, I always look up to and admire. I'm terrible at blind tastings. I think but they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun.
And I'll pull the quote from Roy. It's the whiskey that's on trial, not trying to nail it. I was just lucky on that one.
It's the relativity of it. It's what you've had, before it, and it's what you're tasting like next to it. I mean, so like those little factors can actually affect a blind tasting as well, I think, anyway.
So much so.
Yeah.
So much so. But well, I wanna show this pic because the whiskey was fabulous, but the people were off the chart. And you talked about the after party, meeting Mark Gillespie, the whiskey cast, meeting him, and yes, this one finagling finagling that glass out from under him. That was sharp. That's quick. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It got home perfectly well.
And those are a hot commodity.
He was so nice, and it was very sweet. Just anything he could do to help me. And then at the after party, he told me, "And if you don't call me, I'm going to be pissed at you." And I'm like, "I'll call you. I promise. I promise." So he was just so great. We were coming back. I mean, look how gorgeous the Parliament is, all lit up with me, Terry, and Jen down there on the bottom. I just loved that. That was cool. It was cool. It was crisp. It was wonderful.
Good weather.
And then Chad and his posse.
Yeah. So this was Ryan's. Yeah. So on the bottom right there. So Ryan is on the far left there with the bowler hat. This was his first whiskey festival, and needless to say, he absolutely loved it. He enjoyed it, and he definitely wants to come back. So that's definitely a win for us because I get the excitement that you live vicariously through people that this is their first experience, and it was fantastic being with him all weekend and just seeing his eyes light up, and he got to taste the Michter's 20.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not every day, right? People taste that, and he got to taste that, and that he was just on cloud 9 because of it. And it was fantastic. Some of the other highlights. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Chad, to your point, I think this is part of the reason why I really love working on the other side of the table, is because I get to experience those with all the people that are attending. And it's such a rare moment and special. So yeah, this is partly why I do what I do. And with Victoria Whiskey Festival, it's just a different crowd. And the experiences are so unique. There are other whiskey events that I've poured at, and it's just not the same thing. Like, this is definitely special, and you can't really explain that unless you've been there. And so Ryan, your friend, your pal, has definitely gone.
Yeah.
So how would you explain or articulate that vibe? Because it was I want to say proper, but not stuffy. I mean, like, it was people were there to enjoy it and to celebrate it, but it wasn't pretentious at all. It wasn't and it wasn't terribly casual either. I don't know really how to articulate that.
Right. The quality of spirit that was being poured was also really high. I mean, you're getting like the VIP event sells out almost immediately because there are special drams being poured there. But I also think it's the caliber of people that are being brought in, the education that you receive from it, the cost value. It's just, do you know what I mean? Like, it's through
regardless of the exchange rate between the Canadian and US dollar, it was a hell of a deal, because to get, basically 5 master classes and that tasting was $345 Canadian. That's unbelievable. It is such a really great value for what you're learning, and especially what you're tasting. The environment adds to that. To have a comfortable environment, you stay at the hotel where it's being held. It was easy, relatively, seaplane included, to get there. But it was another thought I was going there. It was very welcoming, well,
and it's small, right? It's not like they don't overly sell I mean,
Yes.
they could make it bigger if they want to, but they choose not to. Why?
Yeah.
Because
Yes, exactly.
this is the right amount.
Exactly.
This is
'Cause-
like the secret sauce, right?
I'm telling you, it would be like Jazz Fest. However many we can shove in the door, let's sell the tickets if we're down here. And that has a bad rap at a lot of whiskey festivals here in the States. It's just like a cattle call, just get them in, pour them, and get them out, you know?
Yeah.
And that was, even at the tasting, you know, we went to the consumer tasting, not the VIP one, and it was crowded. I had to like back out a couple of times, you know, just because it was the two rooms. There were a lot of people, of course. People wanted to chat, you know. And that late in the day after all of that, you're a little tired, but it was very well handled, very well poured. Just I can't say enough about it. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where I don't want anybody to know about it. So I can just keep going.
Yeah. You know, and Terry, you could probably attest to this as well. There was a little extra something this year because it's the first time really in person we've all been together. And so obviously we're excited to taste the whiskeys and enjoy the whiskeys, but there was an extra added something to it. And it was just all of us being together again, seeing those familiar faces, you know, meeting new people as well. So that was an extra bit of excitement that everybody had. So
like a little mini
yeah.
reunion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this new time, you know, new people coming up. And again, you know, like the Southern women show up. We were an anomaly. It was real quick to figure out there were not that many people from the States there. And that's okay. Because
like, hi.
we just used the accents that God gave us, and you know, we let the chips fall.
Yeah, there was the odd time Jen let the Texas accent because everyone's like, you don't speak with a Texas accent. And she said,
I know.
well, I can. And then she just
I can
put
do
it
it when I
on,
want.
and it was like, yeah, it was pretty thick.
You learn to turn it on when you need to.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Like when you get on the wrong bus in Edinburgh and they're like, that's not the right fare. You're not going to the right place. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was doing. And he looks at me, goes, sit on the last, I'll get you where you need to go. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Just work it however you can, you know?
Absolutely.
But to be very welcoming to us. But as new folks, it was easy to figure out, you know, it was easy to be there. It was very welcoming. It wasn't like, oh, those people are here. It wasn't any of that,
No,
you know. But it also helped to have the two of you to help the two of us navigate that to even get there, whether it was how to get the ticket or how to get physically there on a seaplane. You know, to where we're at an after party. This picture in the middle, you know, this is on the top right is Terry pouring at Kilhoman, Total Redeem, and what else were you pouring? I was trying to think what else.
No, those were the two that I had.
Yeah.
And Kilhoman.
Yeah. I mean, even the signage at the tasting was immaculate. I mean, how often do you go to tastings and you can't tell what the table is? And if you can see in the top of that, these huge banners were up at the ceiling. So you could look around up high and see where things were.
Yeah, the organizers did a great job. Yes.
Beautiful planning.
Yeah, they do.
But I think, Terry, you had skidded off to the other room at this picture in the middle. But Bry in the middle is the ambassador for Ardbeg and Glenmorangie for Canada. And then that's Canadian Whiskey Smith, Teresa, with us. The grin on my face, Leanne's a happy girl at 2:30 in the morning at the after party. We were having a lot of fun. And that I was having fun, not because of what was in my glass, but because of the people that were around me. And I cannot thank you two enough for being the best hosts and making sure that Jennifer and I were well received and had an absolutely fabulous time.
Yeah.
Also, Chad, thank you for swapping me the Ben Romick ticket for the Westland, because now I'm an official Ben Romick fangirl. That was like my
absolutely. Yeah. I love Ben Romick.
Oh
yeah. I love Ben Romick. You were on the fence about it, but then my buddy James Bourne, who represents Gordon MacPhail and Glen Alecky and Ben Romick in Western Canada, he had mentioned that the Ben Romick 40 was going to be poured. And so
say that again for the people in the back.
right?
What did they
Yeah.
pour at a whiskey festival at a
The
Masterclass?
Ben Romick 40.
40.
And
Oh
so,
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. And so James is also an individual who's been very kind to me over the years. At the VIP public tasting, he had the Glenlivet 1974 under the table that he poured for me as well. I desperately tried to have him save some for you guys, but he had it up, and like as soon as anybody saw that bottle, they like just like a swarm of people came to the table. So he only had a little bit left. So the 74 Glenlivet, also he had the Ben Romick 40 under as well. So I had a chance to taste those. So those were fantastic. Wow. So a big thanks personally to James Bourne for allowing me to taste those amazing whiskeys.
They were, there were things that we got to taste that, you know.
Yeah.
I'll
And
never
Jen
have again.
worked the black art. She saw the black art on the Bruichladdich table, and you know we were there for a bit.
Bruichladdich guy.
Yeah, and we did it. Yeah, and you know a lot of people say, Leon, too, is you know, how do you get to taste these bottles, or how do you do this? How come you got to taste that? And really, the only recommendation that I could say, there's a little bit of a luck involved as well. And if you've been to one of their master classes, oftentimes they'll tell you what's under the table and they'll recognize you. But I think the general extent within Terry, you probably could attest to this better than I could. Engage with them, go through the core lineup, go through what's on the table, and just generally ask questions and be interested. And then just happily say, hey, you know, do you have anything under the table? What else do you have to offer? I've seen people come up to the table and immediately want to know what's under the table, and that's typically not the way you do it and go about it. You need to engage with them, and more often than not, you'll learn something. You know, I'll learn something from Terry. You know, she'll tell you, you know, things that you never really knew before, and introduce you to whiskeys you never knew before. And Terry, I do have to say, like when we were at your table, you did a fantastic job. You're really well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. And, you know, everyone who's pouring, I don't care what gender they are, they know their stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're pouring, they're there for a reason, and it's not to be candy. You know, they know their stuff. That group of women that we had dinner with, and being able to sit there and talk shop, and to talk, you know, and to it, we were together 45 minutes to an hour for that dinner. Every time I saw someone at that dinner in the hallway, they stopped me and said, hello, are you enjoying yourself? What are you finding out? What did you taste that you loved? You know, just anytime you see them, Terry, just give them a big old hug. Thank you for us. Because it was great to see that many professionals. Stacy, oh my gosh, I'm fangirl.
She's fantastic.
She's just unreal. She's like,
Jamie Johnson. Jamie's always been fantastic. Yeah. She's always been very nice to me, very enthusiastic. She's, you know, Jamie's fantastic.
Yeah, we fangirl all over these girls all the time.
Oh, yeah. You know, and it like I said, it was really good to see. It's good to see yourself, you know, your like self there. It's still kind of, you know, there's not too many of us on YouTube. And I'm not getting into the I'm Mormon, hear me roar mode or anything. It's just, I love the fact that there was a place at the table for everybody, you know, and again, it's because you Canadians are so freaking nice. It just,
and Leanne, I didn't introduce you to Tish Arcus, right? Like Tish is a national treasure. Absolutely. She is amazing. And it is really because of her and because of her palette, we have the Chronicles series in you know, Canadian Club. And there's a big story there, and a huge kudos to her. And we owe her a lot of thanks for really demanding and putting her foot down and saying, no, this is an amazing whiskey. We need to release this. And they did, and it is fantastic. So, women in general there, like you said, is great representation. You know, those of us that are kind of more on the inside, it really doesn't strike me so much. But I think for people on the outside that aren't really into whiskey, they see it like, oh, there's a lot of women here, or they're, you know, these women are, you know, giving their tasting notes and their nosing notes. But for a lot of us that are in, you know, really love whiskey or in the industry, you know, women have played a hugely important role from day one with whiskey, and they continue to this day.
Yeah, they were the ones making it. Men were hunting and gathering,
Yeah,
plowing fields. They were the ones taking the grain and making it. Donner Pass has a comment, and just that whiskey people are the best humans on the planet. Aww. They really are. It's a very sharing group. And thanks for everybody in the chat. I know we haven't engaged a whole lot in the chat. It's just
sorry,
it's been just so much
yakking about the festival.
Just yakking about the festival, but really getting these folks together to try to exude and articulate what a great event this is.
Did we ask Chad and Terry what you started with the Orchard House and then the Boona? Yes. So what are you guys drinking, by the way?
Yeah,
we didn't go through the what's everybody drinking roll call.
Oh yeah. So I'm doing the Hazelburn 15 Oloroso 2022.
Yum.
Delicious.
Yeah, so Rob from Whiskey in the Six, this wasn't, I think he liked it. My general takeaway was that he liked it, but it wasn't his favorite kind of Springbank expression. The sulfur kind of got to him a little bit. And I do get a little bit of sulfur on the finish, but it's only like after every third or fourth sip. Everything, and I don't mind sulfur, but I really love this whiskey. I've been on a bourbon barrel kick lately, and this has kind of brought me back into sherry cask matured whiskeys, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Do you think that's one that's kind of has to like give it some air?
Yeah. Oh, it definitely. And I opened it last Thursday, Leanne, and it was nice. I loved it, but actually this week I've left it a week, given it a little bit more time, and it's definitely opened up, and I really enjoy it. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So I have a couple tips for people going to the festival, and I'm sure a lot of people already do this, but I like to bring little bottles with me because I'm a lightweight. I can't drink all my whiskeys. So, and I also want to bring it home so I can reevaluate them again. What I have here, because on Saturday I worked the event, so I didn't really get to taste a whole lot. I did 2 grand tastings. One was the Amrut with Whiskey Sniffer, and the second one was the SMWS with John McShane. So the one I was drinking is our first Canadian Shelter Point joining the SMWS, and that is 152.1. This bottle was sold out so quickly. I didn't even see it. But I'm just really glad that I had the opportunity to try it at the grand tasting. And it's called Vibrant and Vigorous.
Ooh. Now talk about a little bit about Shelter Point, if you don't mind, because that's something that we don't see down here.
I'm really excited about them. I want to go and make my way up to see them because I too don't know too much about them. I've been in Scotland, so but yeah, I can't wait to get to them. They're
in BC, right?
They're on Vancouver Island, north of Nanaimo. So we were south in Victoria, and I think it's about 5.5 hours. I don't know. Someone will have to correct me.
It's further than I thought, because I was just like, it's just up the road, and like, no, it's in Campbell River, and I'm like, okay. So you're right, Terry. It is a ways up there, but
it's a ways, yeah.
I think they are destined to really be the ambassadors for Canadian single malt. I really do. They're poised. They're getting a lot of notoriety south of the border, which is always important, right? Because it's such a huge market, and if you gain strides in the U.S. market, it's only going to be beneficial for you and your brand. And they're making amazing stuff. Actually, Terry, we because the SMWS is here in Kelowna, we tasted the .2 as well here. So we had the second cask from Shelter Point.
Wait, have you done the February outturn now?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember. I know the actual first official outturn we're doing, I think, is in April. So all these bottles that they had with John, only 1 or 2 were available to the mass public. Everything else was only available to our market here in Kelowna and Vancouver. So they were the only people to get that. So Shelter Point sold out fast.
Crazy. Yeah. So I've got the point. Well, I just finished the point one.
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
and yeah, so point two, that's cool. I tomorrow I'm heading
Yeah.
to the February outturn, so I'm really excited to check out what's there.
Yeah.
We had a sneak preview of what's to come, so I'm already like, ooh, lottery,
There you go,
lottery.
Terry. Claude's got you.
Code's got you. Yeah.
Ooh.
If you want a dog too, you can put one aside for you.
Nice.
Yeah. And I do have to thank, Rob and Kelly Carpenter. Terry, you're obviously familiar with Rob and Kelly.
Yes.
They run the Canadian chapter of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and they're two fantastic people. And they have also opened up Holyrood Distillery in Edinburgh.
Yes.
Edinburgh's first distillery in 100 years or over 100 years. And one of the highlights of my weekend was at the after party. Rob came up to me and Claude as well and said, "Listen, we've got this whiskey. It's Holyrood. It's going to be released sometime soonish, but I really want your input on this, and I want you to tell me what you think of it." And to me, that was a great honor because I knew, he had this whiskey and he wasn't sharing it with everybody, but he was really interested in our take on it. And to me, that was a great honor. And needless to say, it's young, but it's very vibrant, very fruity. I told him, my whole thing is that, if you ask me about a whiskey, if I don't say very much, typically you can tell I don't like it, but I'll just keep quiet. I won't say anything bad about it, but I'll just keep quiet. And with this whiskey, the tasting notes were coming very fast and furious. Claude as well. So that's definitely, look out for Holyrood's first, release. They've been doing some contract distilling right now, and they make gin and stuff. But their first official single malt.
I had the honor of hanging out with their team when I was in Edinburgh. So if you ever get a chance to go to Edinburgh, definitely Holyrood is a must-stop place. If you want to nerd out, they are experimenting with all sorts of yeasts, and that is definitely exciting. Some of their production team comes from brewing background, and so they're experimenting with sake yeasts and all sorts of fun stuff. So yeah, definitely exciting people to watch.
That was interesting because you called me over, Chad, and was like, "Hey, come smell, come taste this," and just the idea that he would have that, because how vulnerable is that? I mean, talk about a passion and trying to get something like that off the ground and getting working, and then you're putting your life's work in front of someone to say, "What do you think?" And I think it was like 3.5, 3 3/4 years,
just over 3. Just over 3.
And to me, I mean, the nose on that was like walking through an orchard that was blooming. I mean, it was very floral, but fruity too. And I remember him making a comment to me and saying, "Well, that's very kind of you to say." And I was like, "Well, clearly you don't know me, because I, unlike Chad, will tell you anything I think." And I actually related a story to him about going to another place where we tried their American single malts and they weren't ready. And it was like, do you not say, or do you kind of go, "I want you to succeed, and this has got to get better," because it doesn't do any service to, and for my personality, I could do that. I know that not everybody can or should do that. But I want that other distillery to succeed. So I very nicely told him I was not blowing smoke up his kilt, and just told him, it really was. It was very promising and very nice. And as y'all said, completely honored to even be asked to even partake of that.
Yeah, and the after party itself, Terry, because I'm sure you feel this way. It's a great time for all the hardworking, volunteers and the presenters and the brand ambassadors. It's a chance for a lot of them just to unwind, right? Like you said, they can't partake during the day, but it's their chance to really. It's done. They've put in their time. They've worked hard, and now they can relax, right? So you see a lot of them there just with this look of just absolute euphoria on their face because they made it through the day, and now they have a chance to relax and talk whiskey with like-minded people, and it's a great experience for them as well.
Yeah, I probably slept 9.5 hours over the entire weekend.
Wow. Sleep in your bed.
I like 10 minutes power nap on the ferry, and I was good.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember, just so you know, Alex from Ardbeg, he's so adorable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he was so adorable. I have well-made shoes older than him. Anyway, he took my glass and he poured Wee Beastie in it and then topped it off with Canadian dry ginger ale. He was like, "This is the best drink ever."
Sort of like a quick penicillin, right? Penicillin is like
precious. Oh my gosh, he was a hot mess. He was just adorable, and his car had gotten broken into. So thankfully, he had moved all the whiskey out of his car, but all of the mats, just the stuff that he needed for the tasting had gotten stolen. He had to replace all of that.
Not the Ardbeg.
Yeah, like Glenmorangie, we set up the Glenmorangie that morning, and it was all like nice orange. He had just gotten it printed, so they were fresh.
Wow.
Yeah. We had to swap that over pretty quick.
Yeah, hardworking folks. Anybody
It
who
is,
thinks that the drinks industry is that's a hardworking bunch of people. It really is.
Yep.
Work hard, play hard.
Huh?
Work hard, play hard.
That is true. That's why it's a younger person's gig than it is this demographic. That's for sure. I'm educating and telling people about it, but wow. No, mad props to everybody who put this together. Being able to meet Fred and Ian was an absolute treat.
Yeah.
Just, it was really pretty cool. It was funny because like, oh, you live up here? No, I live in Louisiana. You live in Louisiana? Like, yeah. And you came here? Yeah.
You find your way up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah. So surprises for me, Leanne, because you talked about surprises. I was really pleasantly surprised with Lindorus Abbey. A young whiskey, but still very promising because that kind of brought it to mind when we were talking about Holyrood. What about you guys? Like, surprises and pleasant surprises to me was Lindorus was one of them.
I already went. Mine was Ben Romick, just sold.
Good. Yeah. Terry, what about you?
I don't have a lot of surprises just because I've been exposed to so much of it. I mean, I think a lot of people ask me, what my favorites are, what are my go-tos, and that is the most difficult question to ask. It really is like, what is my mood? I will drink all of this on any given day.
What's your favorite whiskey? Yes.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was just the independent bottling, companies, the IBs, and really understanding what their role is and what they do, how they actually craft their whiskey, and the misnomer that they just buy an odd cask, throw their name on it, and call it good.
Yeah. Gordon MacPhail and SMWS, two things that I learned. I knew it on the SMWS side, but I didn't know on the Gordon MacPhail side. But they basically now have their own casks, and they take the new make now rather than buying casks with new make in it. Yeah. They take the new make and they mature it themselves on their site, which is something that I learned because, like you said, Leanne, education is so important. I want to bring it back to my members of my club and my friends, and it's so great that you learn those kind of things. And for however many years I've been doing this and loving it, that's something new that I learned. And also the SMWS, there's a lot of talk about them finishing now, right? Mm-hmm. And John, I've heard it from John, and I've heard it from Rob and Kelly. Typically 2 years, right? They'll finish for at least 2 years, which is not an insignificant amount of time. This isn't 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. This is 2 years. So that's something else that I learned as well.
And the fact they're doing more of SMWS is doing more of the vatting and I say vatting instead of the blend because they were using the term blend, like a single malt blend, meaning they were using multiple casks. So they weren't a single cask. So they were vatting multiple casks from one distillery to make theoretically a blend of that single malt. If you followed me at this late hour, because I didn't realize they were doing as much of that now, to where they can offer more bottling than, a 300 bottle outturn, of something. And they can play with their whiskey a little bit more. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of turned my nose down to when the SMWS started finishing and when they started making their own blends and stuff. But I have to admit, and I told this to John and I've told it to Rob and Kelly, I've been really impressed with their blends. I've been really impressed with the finishing, and subsequently, the last probably 6 months I bought more SMWS bottles than I have the 2 years previous because they're doing well. I really enjoy what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, y'all, we've gone well over. And we could keep going. But I do want to thank you all. I'm going to thank everybody in the chat that's hung with us all this time. I think people are going to really enjoy this, and I hope this is going to be one of those things. If someone goes out and wants to search, what to expect for the Victoria Whiskey Festival, then we've given them a really good idea about that. And big thanks to everybody who welcomed us, to me and Jennifer in. It was tremendous. And I am so very thankful that I finally got to meet you two in real life. I got to hug you and tell you how much I appreciate your friendship. And I look forward to the next time that we can do that again, for sure.
Yeah, as do I. Yeah. Thank you very much, ladies. It was fantastic meeting all of you, and I look forward to the next time we can be together.
Yeah, absolutely. Can y'all hang out around for a little bit? I'll put you in the background any last thoughts?
No, let's do it again. That's it.
Yeah, great festival. Go.
Can't wait. See you in
All
2024.
right, well, hang back. I'm going to put you in the back and say bye to all our friends here. But guys, thanks everyone for being in. I'm sorry we couldn't get into the chat a whole lot tonight. Just these people are so precious. And it's amazing the people that you encounter during your whiskey journey. And those people that get you to the next spot and to open up experiences for you. Whether it's in real life, like at this whiskey festival, or the friendship that you can make with somebody online, which I've had with these people for going on over 2 years now. And to finally be able to then see them is really something. The fact that the friendship that I was able to start with Jennifer at the Whiskey Academy, just keeping that going. These people get you through your whiskey journey. Your whiskey journey is not just your own, because the whiskey always tastes better when you're drinking it with your friends and when you're sharing it. Thank you so much. I'm going to have the end of this Glen Scotia that Chad gave to us, to this SMWS. I love Scotia. But thanks everyone again so much. We'll see you next week. And until then, Slange y'all.